we're back. How we doing? How we doing? I missed all my adoring fans. Hope everyone had a nice break. Sorry I didn't get one out last week. I want to do a real deep dive in this week's card because it's just gonna be this card and then we're off for another week after this. And this is a pretty big pay-per-view. We got Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill for the vacant light heavyweight championship. And we got Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno for the 1000th time for the flyweight championship. Um, So I'm gonna do the main card. We're gonna get right into it. We're not a little rusty. We're gonna get right into it. Paul Craig versus Johnny Walker. Now Walker has had his ups and downs since starting the UFC with 3 straight performance of the night KOs. He got thrown into the top 10, which obviously you can see by his 2-4 record since with 2 pretty brutal KOs. It might have been a little too soon, but again, all 4 of those losses were from guys in the top 10, literally the best of the best at 205. Corey Anderson, Nikita Krylov, and Jamal Hill. Also Thiago Santos, but that was a shit fight. I don't even want to talk about that one. He's known for his super athletic, almost chaotic, fan friendly fight style. All 5 of his UFC wins have been by first round KO. He already is known for being a bit of a dumbass. No offense to the guy. I think he's hilarious, but I think he's just fucking dumb. Entertaining as all hell, but his fight IQ is not the best. And he's taking on Paul Craig, who, even though everyone knows how he's a real enigma, everyone knows how he fights. He still manages time and time again to outgrapple and submit or TKO on the ground and pound his opponents. He's a one-trick pony, but the trick works. So keep going with it. He's gonna try to take you down, and if he can't, he's gonna just let you take him down, and he'll pull guard and just run subs off his back. He's basically like the Ryan Hall of the light heavyweight division. His stand-up is poor, but he's such a submission threat, it really doesn't matter for the most part. I don't think he'll ever be champ, but sticking around the top 10, I could see that for a while. Before his loss in his last time out, he was on a 4-fight finish streak, beating Nikita Krylov, like I mentioned before, Jamal Hill, in 2 of those fights. So really good competition. 4 out of 5 of Craig's losses have come by finish, and 5 out of 7 of Walker's losses have also come by finish, both mostly by KO. I do see a finish in this fight, and I'm having some serious doubts in Walker fighting smart here because all Paul Craig needs is just one little fuck up, and then he'll capitalize, and anything could happen at that point, some sub or whatever. So that's what I'm thinking for this fight. So I'm gonna go with Paul Craig submission. All right, we're gonna move right into the next one. Jessica Andrade versus Lauren Murphy. Jessica Andrade is back at flyweight for this one after dropping down and taking on Amanda Lemos in her last time out. Made it look easy with a first round sub. But before that, she was 2-1 at the in flyweight division with 2 KOs over Caitlin Chukagian, who was ranked the number 1 contender at the time, and Cynthia Calvia, who's just ass. And that lone loss coming from Valentina Shevchenko. So can you really blame her? And it really doesn't matter which weight class you put her in. She looks great in both. And I think she probably deserves to be ranked in the top 5 in both strawweight and flyweight. Her last 5 wins have all come by finish. And although she is small, especially for flyweight, she packs a powerful punch and has some suffocating grappling, very well rounded. With her last 5 wins all coming by ways of knockout, she is 3-3 in her last 6, but 2 of those losses were for the belt, 1 in each weight class. And the other loss is coming from Rose Namajunas. That was when Rose was in between title fights at the time, was that her one fight in 7 fights that wasn't a title shot, and she fought Jessica Andrade. So really, really tough competition. She's well rounded, like I said before, and can finish the fight from anywhere. And I think that Lauren Murphy has no chance in hell at even coming close to a win here. She's 39 years old. She's on a very good run, 6-1 in her last 7, only losing to Valentina Shevchenko, where she was absolutely just brutalized. But since 2021, 2 out of her 3 fights that she has had has come from 2 fighters that were 1-4 in their last 5. So it wasn't anywhere near the type of competition that Andrade was fighting. And this should just be an open and shut for you. Look at this fight, I shouldn't even have to do a breakdown of this, but going up Andrade here, most likely by finish. I like a finish in that. And we're gonna move right into the next one, which is also this is I think like I don't throw the term lock around, but I think that Jessica Andrade fight, Lauren Murphy, and this Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny fight are pretty much locks. I know I don't give out locks like a handful ever. Um, and I think these two are some of them. Burns is coming off an amazing 5 round back and forth banger of a fight against Hazmat Chimaev, which was the only time we've seen Chimaev look human. And there's a great argument that Burns even won that fight. Burns was able to neutralize the grappling of one of the best grapplers in the entire UFC. And not only that, he was able to outstrike him in 2 out of the 3 rounds. Burns is a super well rounded guy and is, I think, like near the prime of his career. Neil Magny, on the other hand, he is probably one of the most consistent welterweights since joining the UFC back in 2013 with a 20-8 record. He's a physical nightmare matchup. He's super long and lanky and keeps strike like when he fights strikers, especially, he just is able to frustrate them with his length, move out of the way, keep his distance, avoid a lot of damage, and pepper in some takedowns if he has to. But against elite grapplers like Gilbert Burns, he seems to struggle. With his last 2 losses coming, he got outgrappled by Michael Chiesa and Shavkat Rakhmonov um, in 2 pretty one-sided fights. And that's kind of how I see this fight going. I really think Burns comes out with something big to prove, and I think we see Gilbert Burns finish here. Huge bounce back fight from that very, very close fight against one of the best guys in the UFC roster. And I'm pretty confident with that pick. So we're going to move right into the co-main event for the flyweight title. Davison Figueiredo, the champ, versus Brandon Moreno 4. So this is our annual Figgy versus Moreno fight breakdown. I feel like this is just getting old. For fourth time's a charm. This matchup is 1-1-1 with Figgy winning the last fight and currently holding the belt. Moreno is coming off a bounce back win. He had a little fight in there. Figgy hasn't, but Moreno did have one fight against Kai Kara France since their last matchup. Um, and he was able to KO him. He did have a change in gyms. He cut ties with Glory MMA after that whole James Krause federal investigation, and people found out that he had a foot in offshore sportsbook business. So it had to have been a stressful time for Moreno for all this shit to go down in one of the biggest fights of his career. Worry about the backlash from that, or the stigma that he might face against people looking at him that maybe he had a foot in it. Look, he obviously didn't. I'm not saying that. Don't sue me, but people might have thought that because they are at the same gym. And he had to find a new coach too. And this is a crazy, highly anticipated rematch. So I was worried about that. That being said, I think every time we see Moreno, we see a new wrinkle to his game. We see him get a little bit better. He's taken on Davison Figueiredo, who hasn't fought since January 22nd of 2022 against Brandon Moreno, basically a year to the date. And he looked locked in great in that fight, fighting with tremendous motivation. And I think he's going to have a similar plan to his last time out. Figgy, he looked to counter strike, really picked his shots strategically, just looking for big power shots. And while Moreno kept his distance, um, circled around more, looking to slow Figgy down, wearing his gas tank, and kind of outstrike him, not with power, but just like point fighting. So it comes down to, will Figgy be able to catch Moreno, or will Moreno avoid the damage and outstrike Figgy, just like how he outstruck Figgy in 4 out of the 5 rounds in their last matchup. And I hate to say it because I love Moreno, but I think Figgy figured out the weight. He figured out the cardio thing, and now I think it's going to be pretty tough to beat him. I do think he might be looking past this matchup a bit. I heard Figueiredo talking about how he won't fight for a bantamweight title if Cejudo is champ, which is just like, what a fucking stupid thing to say. Like, Cejudo's not even champ yet. Like, you're thinking way too far ahead. I think so. You never know with this fight. It's very close. It is a pick 'em right now. But I'm gonna go with the champ in that one. Uh, yeah, I just think that he's at his best at this moment. And we're gonna move right into the main event: Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. Weird matchup here for this one. I thought that Jamal Hill would have needed at least 3 or 4 more wins, at least to get a title shot. But the UFC was scrambling after that whole freak Jiri injury, and then Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev draw fiasco. Yeah, it's just been not a good couple months for the 205 division. So this is the best they could do, I guess. Glover Teixeira's last fight ended up winning Fight of the Year 2022 against Jerry Prochaska. But Jamal Hill, I don't know. It just seems a little bit too soon for him. Glover looked absolutely phenomenal in that Jiri fight. His striking looked great. His chin held up good, and he was able to take down Jiri 5 times and had over 9 minutes of control time. I do honestly think that Teixeira does have the ability to hold the belt again. I know a lot of people are writing him off. He did open as a slight underdog, but I think people already think that he's washed. But I really don't understand why. He's 43 years old, but he fought the best guy at 205 6 months ago and had a razor thin fight. So he clearly is not over the hill or washed. Um, that I'm seeing people write on like Twitter and stuff. So I do think he's a solid underdog. And I don't want to take anything away from Jamal Hill. He's one of the most entertaining young 205ers on the roster. He's had 3 straight KO wins, all performance of the night or fight of the night awards. His striking is technical. He's got heavy hands, great footwork, unreal hand speed. But he has been taken down 6 times in 2 separate fights since 2020. And it was not over the highest level of competition whatsoever. It was over Darko Stosic, who was 1-3 in the UFC before getting cut, and against Thiago Santos in Santos's last fight when he was on a 1-5 run. So I'm going to be going with Glover in this one. I'm going to have Glover probably in the end of some parlays, and then probably hedge it with Jamal Hill KO, because that's the only way I see Jamal Hill winning this, is just like a flash KO. So that's it. Glad to be back. No brainer MMA.